Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Bourne, and I'm the lead pastor for Victory House Churches. And today I'm joined by my friend Lyndon Carr.
Hello.
We work together to make everything connected to Victory House Churches happen. And I've asked him to come in here and interview me today as we talk about basically answering any questions you may have about this desire that I believe that God's put on your heart. So you're here today because you want to learn about house churches and how they work and what's the vision and all that sort of thing. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, and I think that there's some commonly asked questions for Victory House Churches that I want to ask you. And so the first one, overall, what is the vision for Victory House Churches?
So the vision is actually to see the gospel planted in every neighborhood. And we say to see the gospel planted, not house churches planted, because we believe house churches are actually the fruit of seeing the gospel planted. That when you plant the gospel, it's not just changing someone's eternity, it changes their now. It changes every aspect of their life, their finances, the way they handle marriage, the way they raise their kids, the way they take care of their own lawn and their house. So the gospel comes in and actually changes your entire world. And so we want to see the gospel planted. We believe that spiritual families will be formed, and the result of that is that churches will emerge.
That's awesome.
So that is the vision behind it. But if you actually look at what is house church, what is the church in general, the church is not a building. It's not services or a style of worship. The church is us. It's a people.
Yeah.
And so if you remove all of those things and you trim church down to its most basic form, what's left over is mission, community, and worship. And we say them in that order because mission is like the foundation for this. It's the missio Dei, the mission of God. And the mission of God is that He sent Jesus to us to save us, to heal us and restore us. And as a result, Jesus is sending us to the world to do the same thing.
Right.
That the church, the mission of God is not the mission of the church. The church was actually made for the mission of God. And that's such an important piece because sometimes I think we think that mission is an add-on for the church.
Right.
And we forget that the church only exists really at its core to fulfill the mission of God, and that's to reach the lost and make disciples. So mission's core, it's key, it's foundational. Second is community. And really, I think this is the most attractive piece because everyone wants to belong.
For sure.
People feel isolated. They want to experience love, and that's why you often see them looking in all the wrong places to try to find love, try to find acceptance. But really what they're looking for is genuine relationship, brotherhood. In fact, a lot of times they may be hurt and offended with the church because they think that the church wants something from them instead of wanting something for them. And so what we want to do is we want to actually train you, equip you, and send you to go to the community where you either live, work, or play, and just love people. And then through that, we believe that's going to open up doors for spiritual conversations, which is kind of the third domino, which is worship. So worship is not just a thing we do. Worship is our response to who God is. And it's basically anything that we do that brings glory to God and celebrates His goodness. So that can be, yes, it can be singing. It can be reading the Bible. It can be communion, baptizing people, sharing our testimony with each other. All these things are worship. And, we believe they kind of go into an order there. So mission is you go first. Community is what you're inviting people into. And the response when they experience who Jesus is worship. So those are the three core elements of what makes up a Victory House Church.
Okay. And so as you talk about those three main elements, what does it actually look like for Victory House Churches to live on missions? What do they practically do?
Yeah. Well, we actually use this book that's kind of our foundational part of our training. It's called Bless. It's written by Dave Ferguson and John Ferguson, two brothers out of the Chicago area that pastor Chicago Community Church. And this book is an acronym, really. It starts with B, which is begin with prayer. And there isn't a move of God that I've seen anywhere that hasn't birthed out of extraordinary prayer. And so we're praying for God to show us, well, who's the person of peace, the person we're supposed to connect to in our neighborhood? Who is God already working in and around and through? Whose hearts is He wanting to soften? Who is He wanting to open up to be able to receive basically this friendship, to be able to receive the gospel? And so we're asking for God to guide our steps as we're driving through our neighborhood, as we're walking through the office. And it starts with beginning with prayer, God highlighting what He wants to do and how we can partner with that. L is the second one, and that's listen, or I'll say look. And that actually comes down to, as I connect with people from my community, I'm listening to things about them, trying to get to know them. Right. What is it they like? What is it that stresses them out? What are they worried about? Their fears. what are some things that they need help with that can help, that I can partner with them on. And so the listening is looking for opportunities to connect, really.
Yeah.
Which leads you to E, which is eat, and my favorite one.
Love that.
And then honestly, if you look at Jesus, he was constantly inviting people to come break bread with him. You see, he's always eating and drinking with people. In fact, the Pharisees accused him of being a glutton and a drunkard because he came eating and drinking. But that's because he knew that relationship and friendships happen around tables, around breaking bread together. And it's something that you always, you do this daily anyway. So what a great opportunity to connect with people over coffee, over a meal, to have them into your home or to go into their home. And that's where relationships are actually formed. That actually leads to you getting to share your story.
Right.
And so the S is serve. So when I'm eating with them, I'm listening to them, I'm looking for opportunities. How can I come in and serve them? People aren't used to people serving them,
right.
Especially when you're not just trying to get something from them. You just want to see them blessed. So S is serve. And the last S, as I just alluded to, is sharing your story. So as I'm breaking bread with you, as I'm walking in the neighborhood, I get to tell you a little bit about my life. And I can't talk about my life without talking about what Jesus has done in my life.
Right.
And so as I share my story, I'm really sharing his story, which is going to lead to you having an opportunity for him to change your story. And so I really love this acronym because it's such a simple method. And we do other trainings as well. But I think if you get this piece, in fact, if you just watch this, you could actually start doing this today.
Right.
And we'll see the world change as a result of you just being a great neighbor, loving people, and interacting with those around you in this way to be a blessing, that you are blessed to be a blessing to those around you.
I think it's awesome that it's also like incarnational ministry, like just how Jesus came to the earth to show us who he is, to show us God, like we're moving into the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So we're not just inviting someone to come to something, we're moving into the neighborhood, eating, listening, sharing stories, having community. And so with that being said, the next question is, what does a house church gathering look like? What do they actually do at the house churches?
Yeah. Well, it's mission, community, and worship, and that can happen in and outside of a worship service environment. But what an actual worship service would look like in your home or in your office or in the park, wherever you choose to meet, is you're streaming Victory services. You're basically a host location, a satellite location, and we offer our service in 3 different formats right now. So option 1, you watch the entire service with announcements, worship, message. That's somewhere around an hour and 20 to an hour and 30 minutes. And a lot of people love that because that's everything you've come to know about Victory and you want to share that with people. Option 2 is just the message. And that gives you some flexibility in case you want to just watch like Victory House worship videos, or you want this service to be a time of people telling testimonies, or we're going to do a deep dive on scripture or something different. Maybe it's going to be baptisms first. So it gives you some flexibility on what the worship piece looks like before you go into the message. That's option 2. The message is somewhere usually around 40 to 55 minutes, give or take some, depending on that message. Depending on who's preaching. And then option 3 is going to be a condensed and edited version of the message, which is where we've either edited down to like 15 to 20 minutes, the highlights, or we've given a unique talk that's taken the basic, big idea for the message and transferred it into a 15-minute talk for you. And that gives you flexibility to go into a Discovery Bible study, and to use this 3/3 group format. And the 3/3 format is something else that you can use in a worship service, you can use it during the week, but basically it's when you gather to people and you ask them these questions of looking back, looking up, and looking forward. So looking back, I'm saying, how was your week? Let's have a meal together, catch us up. Did you do the things we talked about doing last week? So it's providing accountability.
That's good.
Looking up is, it can either come from a Bible study or from the message I just watched. Looking up is, what does this teach me about God? What does this teach me about people? And as a result of that, what am I going to do?
Right.
So it's now application. And then here's the best part, looking forward. As I leave here today, how am I going to apply this? What am I going to do differently? Who needs to hear this? Who do I need to bring back with me next week? Who do I need to go tell about it?
Right.
So it's constantly going to require movement. How many times have you sat in a Sunday service and heard a phenomenal message and had no life change happen because you haven't had to go actually apply it? But how different would it be if you knew that you had to show up next week and we're going to talk about that? So it moves from being knowledge-based discipleship to obedience-based discipleship.
Right.
And one of our friends has said, Pastor Todd McIntyre said, we are the most informed and knowledgeable church in the history of the world,
Right.
but we are the least obedient. That's the American church. So we have a chance to change that by raising actual disciples, people that not only hear what the word is, but do what the word is, what the word says. And so we believe that's going to actually change the world, change our communities, because the Bible's true and it changes lives when we actually obey it.
Right.
So that's the format for a Victory House worship service.
Okay, and so as I think about those elements of, your worship, your conversation, I think of people who maybe know a lot about Jesus, have been to church prior.
Yeah.
Maybe you have people who are completely new to this whole faith thing. They're just your neighbor that you invited over. And so my question is, like, who actually are these house churches for? What's the community that you're trying to engage with?
It would be those who are far from God or far from God's people. So not necessarily just seekers or people that are looking to know God, absolutely them, but it's also for people who maybe they love Jesus, but they just haven't been back in the building for a long time. Maybe they got out of the habit, or COVID scared them. Maybe they got church hurt and they just, hey, I love God, but I just don't want to go to church. Well, now we're coming to you. So it's definitely for those people. It's for anyone around you, though, to be honest, because your community, your context, and God has put you there for a reason. And so this is flexible enough to shape to meet the needs of the people that are around you. So you could say, well, my heart is, I'm a woman and I want to reach single women in my neighborhood. Great. We're good with that. The only thing we would say is, but make it open to anyone. So if you reach one of the women in your neighborhood who then says, I love this so much, I want to bring my husband and kids, absolutely, you're welcome. So we want the church to be the church, which is an entire spiritual family. It's open to everyone, not just a certain demographic, because we need grandparents, we need kids, cousins, uncles. We need everybody together. That's how spiritual families are formed, and then we see a church emerge.
Right. So it's like they can be on mission towards something, but God will kind of open the doors for other people to kind of join in.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And so you've talked about the three major elements, mission, worship, and community. And so I've got a couple more rapid fire questions. What's the difference between a small group and a house church?
Yeah, well, I love this question because we get asked it a lot. So we have small groups, but small groups are part of the church and they're inward facing. They're for community and discipleship. House churches are, if small groups are the, come and see, then house churches are the go and tell. They're evangelistic and missional. So house churches go to reach those who are not going to come to us. A house church can even have small groups inside of it.
Part of it. Okay.
But that's the biggest difference is small groups are inward and house churches are facing outward.
Okay. And then for the small group leaders, how are they supported and trained?
So if a small group leader wants to become a house church?
Yeah, and just for house church leaders in general, how are they
trained?
trained?
So our house church leaders are trained through an 8-week training program that we go through.
Okay.
It's going to include the book we talked about and some various other resources. But then once they finish the training process, they're also supported in a cohort and led by a coaching couple. So you have other peers that are doing this with you, and you guys encourage each other, you partner together. In fact, we encourage you to grab a couple other people to do this with you, because it's so helpful when you have people that are on mission with you, either doing it together or learning from you. Then it also makes sure that we're focusing on multiplication over addition, because we'd rather have more house churches than bigger house churches. And so that's a big piece, is that you can grab your friends and bring them with you. You don't have to do this by yourself. And then we have ongoing coaching, development, and resources. So we have weekly newsletters, video podcasts, different events that are happening monthly, quarterly, and annually. So just various formats, but basically it's us coaching you, resourcing you, training you, praying for you, and then you have a peer network to go alongside you.
And I think it's important as you talk about that peer network. Some of our house church leaders, maybe they're involved with the campus, so they go to the Norcross campus, or their kids go to the ministries and things like that. How do I be a house church leader and still stay connected with my campus? Can I do that?
Yeah, well, the good part is you don't have to give up your church. And that's probably one of the questions we get asked a lot as well is, do I have to give up my church? I love Victory. And so we tell you no. In fact, your campus is actually like your hub. They're there to help launch and plant house churches. They want to see that happen, and they love you, and they want to support you as a leader. So, if you want to come back on Sundays with your family and still worship, you're more than welcome to do that, because we have the flexibility that we don't have to meet on just Sundays.
Right.
Your house church can meet anytime, any day, whenever that works for you. And then if your kids are plugged into certain ministries or you want to go to certain events, by all means, go ahead. But there's that flexibility that comes with it. So if you're out of state, out of country, online campus is your campus, and we want you to stay involved with online campus. So it's not an either or, it's a both and, which is something we love to say around here.
Love that. And so I want to give you your next steps of, hey, I've heard this interest. I feel like God may be tugging on my heart to be a house church leader. What are my next steps? So what you do is go to victoryatl.com/leadership. Again, that's victoryatl.com/leadership. And on that page, there's going to be a leadership interest form that you fill out and mark that house churches is what you're interested in. From there, we're going to run a background check. We're going to connect you with Victory membership. We're going to ask you about tithing, and that's going to connect you with Aaron and I, and we're going to train you on how do you become a Victory House Church. And so there's house church specific training. We're going to equip you with Victory leadership training to make sure you have everything you need to become a house church leader. So again, that's victoryatl.com/leadership. Aaron, is there anything else you want to share with the people today?
Yeah, I would just say if for whatever reason we didn't answer all your questions today, or you want to have more of a one-on-one conversation, please feel free to reach out to me at aborn, that's ABORN, at victoryatl.com. And we can set up a meeting sometime to talk through this with you and figure out what it is that you need to be successful as a Victory House Church leader.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us in this interest meeting. We look forward to seeing you leading a house church soon.